Keep watching The Politics every Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time on New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.
Good afternoon. I'm Robert Press, your host on this Friday afternoon on January 14th. And this is Welcome to Talking Politics. My co-host is Anthony Rivecchio. And Anthony, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Professor Anthony Rivecchio. I am a professor at both Herbert A. Schliemann College as well as Monroe College in personal finance and economics. I also helped found a wonderful Northwest Bronx political organization here called Northwest Bronx Democrats.
If I'm a little off today, it's because of the high-rise fire that happened on Sunday. I am very close to the Muslim community. I work for Muslim media, in case you don't know, out there. And 17 Muslim people were lost in this fire. It was first reported as 19 Muslim people, 9 children, and 10 adults. It's now down to 17. They have revised the number to 17, 9 adults and 8 children. But it is a very touching situation, and there needs to be things that are done to there. Okay, here you see a press conference. Yesterday there was a press conference by some local elected officials, but we'll get into that a little later. All right, let's go into our usual format, Anthony, and talk about Bidenomics. So what's happening with our economy and Joe Biden?
You know, Robert, I'm glad you asked, and I'm going to ask you to bear with me in regards to time for just a moment or two to answer your question. When we talk about Bidenomics this week, we're talking about both, like I always like to say, short-term numbers and then long-term results, right? So what does that mean? Well, this morning, today in the markets as we speak, in the financial markets, we look at today as what's called Banking Day. Banking Day is the day where banks and financial institutions start to report their quarterly numbers.
Right.
This morning, we got quarterly numbers from Citibank that went down, from JP Morgan that went up, and then from Wells Fargo that also went up. All of their investment banking sectors of the banks all went down. So what is the bank index doing as we speak? The bank index is going down. Citibank is going down. JP Morgan and the rest of the banks are going down. So that's what's happening today. Well, what's also happening today? Retail sales numbers were reported at 8:30 this morning. Retail sales numbers lag 1 month back. So the numbers I'm going to share with you are for the month of December. And remember, the month of December is Christmas. So retail sales went down 1.9%.
Yeah,
right?
I showed you that. That's what I had this for. I knew that.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, Robert. Your argument when we talk off the air is that you say, yeah, well, internet sales is killing retail business. Internet sales for the month of December went down 8%.
That's very surprising.
Which will lead me to my third and last point, which is I'm going to ask the producer to put 2 charts up, if you can, because I think that will explain the third point a little bit more. The topic I'm going to talk about is the claims of unemployment insurance to our federal government. He's going to hopefully show you 2 charts in a moment. One chart will say initial claims. The other chart will say continuing claims. And they're both during the same time period, all of 2021. So I'm waiting for the producer to put up the charts because you'll see the first thing you'll see is that both charts on the surface look exactly alike. And you might say to yourself, well, why is that? Right? Maybe it's the same people and the chart might be misreading some information. Well, I'll say it again. I'm being a little slow because I'm waiting for him to put it up. The initial claims of unemployment insurance chart has to do with people that are claiming now, right? But the chart represents 2021. So those are the people claiming now, right? And that chart has gone down once he shows it about
Mr. Producer,
75%.
can we get the charts up, Mr. Producer? All right, but Anthony, let me ask you a question then. People who became unemployed in 2021, if they found jobs, is it possible that they're now unemployed again 6 months to 9 months later?
I'm glad you asked that because again, remember, I said the first chart, the initial claims chart, right, which are the people that are filing for the first time in 2021, right, has gone down 75%. Well, the continuing chart, which is the second chart, the continuing claims of unemployment. Well, that chart, which is for 2021, represents the people for 2020.
Right.
That means is that, and the key is in the continuing chart, when you see the last month of it, you will see it starts to go back up.
Right. Is that because of certain people who are being let go because they're not getting vaccinated?
No. What that means is that the people that claimed for unemployment insurance 2 years ago, that of course made the numbers go
Right.
sideways, right? Well, they lost their unemployment insurance. And
Correct.
by law, they cannot reapply till a year after. Well, guess what? In the month of December, you're going to see they're starting to reclaim, right? So now you might say, well, how come the numbers didn't go up, right? Well, if I have, how do I try to explain it to you? If you have one glass of water and all of a sudden you put a larger glass of water on top of it, right? Then you don't see the smaller glass of water.
No.
So if the numbers continue to go down, what does that mean? That means more people, while the numbers are going down, more people are getting unemployed.
Well, we know that because businesses are closing.
Well, not according to Sleepy Joe. Sleepy Joe says people are working, right? That's what he says. People are working. I was joking around with one of my colleagues yesterday that, if I was 20 years younger, still had my business, I've already got our new company slogan. Joe's asleep, we're not.
But and the word is that Mayor Adams wants a 3% cut from most agencies. There are certain agencies that will be exempt, but he's looking about 3% from half of the workforce. All right.
Well, now you're talking city and state budgeting, which is number one correct, but that's a different topic. Let me finish something on Bidenomics, though, that I really think is important, and I might talk about it a little bit more on the show in the weeks ahead. We're starting income tax season, right? 2021.
And you're a specialist.
And I referenced it to Biden. I'm sorry?
You're a specialist at income tax.
Thank you. And I reference that because, again, that's part of the Bidenomics plan, right? You might say, well, how is that? Well, anyone that has children that's getting the advanced child tax credit, well, you can thank Joe Biden. Every time you got that check, I hope you thanked him. And, of course, during income tax season, you curse him out also, because not only does it look like you're going to, of course, not get that money as part of your refund, but it also looks like those are going to be the people that are going to be affected the most when it comes to income tax processing. Because we're finding out the biggest hole last year when it came to income tax processing was government stimulus plans that were not properly recorded from the consumer end. And when the consumer, of course, by accident or purpose or whatever combination it was, put down the wrong information, well, what did the IRS had to do? They had to correct it.
Right.
That was the number one, and there were several, but that was the number one clog in the system. Well, people that got the child tax credit, that advanced child tax credit, it's almost guaranteed, sadly, those classification of people are almost going to automatically get clogged unless they have every dollar accurately recorded. And as a tax expert, we find out that, it's almost like simple budgeting, right? You start spending money and all of a sudden you say, yeah, I'll write it down later. And then all of a sudden you forget, right? But let me just bring one last thing to everyone's attention. There's going to be an article coming out from the New York Parrot from the called Tax Season 2021. Don't get your $4,000 rapid refund advance. I think it's very important that the consumers know that for income tax season 221, there is now a brand new refund system. 20 years ago, my company and several other companies went to New York State and asked them to stop what was called a big income tax practice called rapid refund, because it wasn't never a rapid refund, it was a rapid loan. And
Right.
of course, over the years, we got them to correct that, and now it's called refund anticipation loans. Well, starting this year, all of the big companies now have a new plan with that, and it's called refund advance. And what refund advance is, it's a little different than the loan program. Again, I say loan because that loan is 35%.
Mhm.
But if you don't want that, they have something that's a no interest loan, right? That's the program I'm talking about. So you say, oh, let me have that one. Okay, fine. We're going to plug you in and we're going to give you and I don't want to mention any particular company except to say that all the big income tax
What's the
companies.
catch, though?
Huh?
What's the catch?
Well, here goes the catch. Let me give you your money. It's on if I can get away with saying this, it's on a New York Parrot debit card. And every time you spend the advance, because that's what it's called a refund advance, right?
Yeah.
Every time you use that card for anything, there is a minimum charge of $3 to $4 depending on what it is you're going to do with it. And God forbid you do things like lose it. Because I can tell you now, most companies will charge you $35 just to get a new one. But the average charge anytime you use it will be about $3 or $4. So if you're getting a $5,000 refund, right? Most ATM maxes are about $300 to $500, right? So that means you're going to do at least 13, of these things, right? So get ready to. Oh, and by the way, I did forget to say one other important thing. They don't give you the card for free. They give you the advance for free. The card is $35.
Boy, there's always a gimmick.
All right. So, 347-575-5045. If anybody, especially in regards to the program I just described, wants any specific information, I'll be glad to share, more specific information off there. But again, if you haven't already seen all the commercials, it's, the big tax companies that are doing it, which also means that the small companies will start to do what I call mini versions. Our companies have been offered over the years to do mini versions. We don't do it for two reasons. Number one, because you can get your money in 3 weeks for free,
right,
by just e-filing to the IRS and tell them to put it in your bank account, right? So you don't have to pay any fees, right? It's supposed to be free, right? And number two, it always devalues the money of the consumer. Right. So, we look at it, of course, as a company, we want to make money, but we also want to help consumers. So, we've been against programs like these for over 20 years. And, I want to just inform our audience that, these are new programs coming out. They've been approved by the government, by the way. Okay. And the reason why is because the government says, as long as you, quote unquote, fully disclose it to the consumer, which is why you'll see the 20 piles of paperwork. You got to sign 20 times because that's the disclosure that right? And then it's legal. So today you could, again, I don't want to mention any particular company, but a company can charge you 35%, and you can get mad as hell. But the company will say, "Well, look, you signed these 29 pieces of paper that said you knew about it."
Yep.
And now, and not only is it legal in New York State for the same logic, it's now legal in many states. But again, our audience should definitely be aware of these income tax.
Well, that's where our attorney general is going to have to step in and go with other states and file a amicus brief to say that, hey, what is this? They're saying tax-free, no interest loan, but the person's going to pay in the long run.
Right. And I won't speak for the court, and I hope they do something like that. But based on past lawsuits, what sort of has been determined is the government has taken the position of, as long as you make it clear and they sign it, it's okay.
Yep.
Now, until they take a more aggressive approach, that's the approach in the last 20 years governments have been taking.
All right. Since we didn't get the tax charts up, let's move on to what happened with our president and his two lawsuits in the Supreme Court. He won one and lost the other. He won the one that the medical institution has to be vaccinated, and then lost the other one where it said over 100 people, businesses with 100 people or more had to be vaccinated. Now there's talk again, as there was, that once he got elected, we need to add more justices to the Supreme Court so they can vote the Democratic way. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, you're just changing the game as it goes.
I don't know if you heard, Robert, but I noticed early this morning a lot of DAs, around the state came out and said that they interpret the law as, okay, it doesn't have to be a federal mandate, but the states can still mandate it if they choose.
Right.
That, of course, now Biden can advocate it for it, but he cannot mandate it.
And once you mention the district attorneys, we're going to go into the Manhattan district attorney, who is getting flack for saying, I'm not going to prosecute certain crimes. The police commissioner has spoken to him, and his answer now is, well, I ran on that platform. The people elected me, and it was a, 5 or 6 person race. I believe he got about 31%. So he's telling us that 31% of the people are enough to say they represent the whole city or the whole borough. But didn't we see that with ranked choice voting, where the elected officials and people said, well, 31% is not a representation of the population of the district. We need to have ranked choice voting, where ranked choice voting will decide and a person will win with more than 50%. So I don't know, you have these people like Alvin Bragg saying, I represent the community or the borough, but he doesn't have over 50%. And if you look at it, he probably got 15% of the vote because many people don't vote. So he really doesn't represent the population of the borough. And I just hope our Bronx Borough president doesn't follow suit, because she's up for re-election next year. She's going to have to make promises. Oh, well, if I'm re-elected, I won't do this, or we've already seen how they're cutting back on, trying to get felonies down to misdemeanors, and the police department. I mean, it's going to become a breaking point. I can see the police department going on strike if this continues. Really, your opinion, Anthony?
Well, my opinion in regards to the original part of your statement about the Manhattan DA is I'm almost speechless as to what to say. We advocate living in a democracy, so anything else less than that would be unacceptable. Therefore, Alvin Bragg is, in my opinion, correct. However, how does one feel living in a democratic state or country where the people don't really run it? And sadly, in some areas, the people don't want to run it, right? Which might be even a bigger concern.
Because
it's not like the people don't have the tools. They have the tools, but if they don't come out to use the tools, then whose fault is it?
Well, stores are threatening to close in New York. Manhattan already has certain stores already saying they're going to close if this continues. CVS has said they're going to close their stores in New York. And if you walk into a CVS or a Walgreens or whatever, you can see most of their products are now behind locked cabinets because they're walking out the door. It is a big problem here. It's something that needs to be addressed. When Mayor
Well,
Rudy Giuliani,
and that's the scary part, Robert. I think you and I have been around long enough to know that it should be addressed, but sadly, it's going to be addressed by most of our legislators that I think are a little bit younger than me, and because they're a little younger than me, they don't remember the 1970s, where sadly, what you just described was almost a daily occurrence.
well, it happened in the 80s, and the 90s, and Mayor Giuliani got the credit for the safe streets. It actually started the last year of David Dinkins, where more police officers were put into the precincts, and people voted for it as a referendum, and taxes were raised to hire more police. But there's no need to hire police if they can't do anything. All right, but let's move on to another topic, and I spoke to a couple of assembly members about redistricting, and I was told, well, we said no to those maps, and they have to be, we want to see a new set of maps. Those maps had you and Northwest Bronx separated because the Norwood section and where you are in Bedford Park were in the 80th Assembly District. It has you now in the 78th Assembly District and the president of Northwest Bronx Democrats, Sheila Sanchez, in the 81st Assembly District. Myself, though, I'm right in the middle of the 80th Assembly District, around the corner from our Assemblywoman's office, so I can't be cut out of the 80th. If they're going to cut me out, they're going to cut me out.
But I think you got to put a little bit more meat into it, because I don't think, I mean, some of our audience might know where Sheila lives and where I live, but I'm sure a great majority don't. So what you're saying is these two maps, which again, I must reemphasize, are rejected, right? So we're now going to speculate on something that's rejected, represent Bedford Park, where I live, to now, in all probability, be the 78th Assembly District.
And so our audience knows.
Norwood would be presumably the 81st.
Right, we're talking about the 80th Assembly District right now.
Right, and both of them currently are in the 80th. 70% of Norwood is the 80th. Only 10% of the 80th is in Bedford Park.
Right, and we saw this in 2000 when Ricky Martinez, who was the chair of the Committee of 100 Democrats, ran against Jeff Klein in the 80th. That was the 80th Assembly District. Next year was redistricting, and all of a sudden Ricky wound up in the 78th Assembly District.
Well, again, as I told you off camera, you're right. You're right. But that was phase 2 of a continuing phase that's been going on here for the course of the last 40 years. I don't know, again, if our audience knows that before the quote unquote South Bronx was considered the political power base, before then, before the 1990s, the power base was up here in the North. And one of the reasons for the radical redistricting, especially what's happened up North the last 20, 30 years, is just for that reason. You want to take out the power base. Well, there was a lot of ways to take them out. It wasn't just redistricting, but of course that was one of them.
Right. George Freeman was the assemblyman of the 80th Assembly District, and he was also the Bronx Democratic County leader. And he held it for a long time. He
was the figurehead at that time, correct. I would tell you, yes, he was the figurehead, but of course, another Freedman, Stanley, was much more influential during that process.
Right. He took over the Bronx Democratic County leadership, and that was during the administration of Borough President Stanley Simon.
Correct.
And it was funny, when I lived in Riverdale, I lived right in between both of them. And one day, as I turned the corner, I see about 20 cameras on Stanley Simon's lawn. and that was the WedTech scandal.
Well, now, Bob, I'm glad you said that, because that will lead me, I guess, into, and again, to educate the audience, that was another part of the reason how the North Bronx power base got destructed. Part of it was redistricting. The other part was during the late 80s. Of course, there was a lot of corruption and things going on, and people, legislators, I should say, went to jail. Some of them committed suicide, like Mr. Simon. But at the end of the day, now you've got open seats, right? So 1/3 of that whole Bronx delegation was gone just from the corruption part. And then the redistricting took other slices along the way. Sure enough, 30 years later, we're obviously not the same district we were 30 years ago.
No, and unfortunately, several, or I should say many, Bronx elected officials have been indicted. Some have just stepped down to avoid prosecution as part of the deals. Others have gone to jail, as we have seen. And hopefully the cycle is broken. But most recently we had an assemblyman who was wired for 4 years. Okay, I myself was at the Bronx Democratic County Executive Office on Blondell Avenue when this certain assemblyman walked in and started questioning the executive director of the Bronx Democratic Party. And I'm listening to it. And, well, why was I there? That's a good question. I just happened to be there in the right place at the right time. Just like when Jose Rivera was the county chair, I was in the right place.
Wait a second, Bob. Why were you there? Because who was the executive director that you were visiting?
I'm not. You know who it is.
No, I don't. But tell the audience, because since you mentioned it, I'm sure they like to know.
Miss Aisha Bravo was the executive director of the Bronx Democratic County Organization by then.
So now, why at that time were you visiting Miss Bravo?
I cannot say.
You cannot say. Okay.
Yes, I cannot say why I was there. Okay.
But Miss Bravo can.
What?
But Miss Bravo can.
No, she can't.
What do you mean she can't? Why can't she?
She does not know why I was there.
You're going to say you wasn't there and you didn't have a conversation with her?
I did have a conversation with her.
So then that's why, I presume that's why you were there, right? Whatever that conversation was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I mean, there are certain things.
The only one that would really know that would be Aisha.
No, well, Anthony, there are certain things about what I have done that cannot be said on air. It's already now a long time, but
right, which is part of my point, that as a media person, you were doing your media thing and you're using your media badge, right, your media-ness,
right. Let's just say it that way. I was using my media coverage. Okay. But let's move on from there. Okay. And other districts we see the district leaders of the 80th Assembly District and possibly some other district leaders or people that are, to be displaced from their assembly district so they can't run against incumbents or, be open seats. So, this is typical of the Bronx Democratic Party every 10 years.
I'm not going to, again, I think you and I might have a slightly different opinion on that, but I might agree with your opinion when the maps are quote unquote official. But again, right now, I really have a problem talking about quote unquote.
Right. We haven't seen the second set. But both you and I.
No. But Robert, again, I don't think you're looking at it in its totality sense, right? How does someone draw up a map like that and not know the neighborhood? The only person that could draw up a map like that and believe it to be true and not know the neighborhood is some muckety muck up in Albany in a hotel getting drunk.
Correct.
Right?
Again,
so who's going to approve something like that? Who in the state legislature is going to approve something like that?
Anthony,
do you honestly believe that Jeffrey Dinowitz wants the lower part of Norwood? Now, the guy that's probably, and forgive me for putting it this way, a white muckety muck that, for all I know, can live in two buck land all the way up in Poughkeepsie, knows nothing about Gun Hill Road, knows nothing about Webster Avenue. But guess what? Jeffrey does. Jeffrey does, and that's why you never see him. Okay, so guess what? At the end of the day, the one that's going to make those type of decisions is not the muckety muck that just got rejected. It's going to be Jeffrey Dinowitz, and I would presume, like with other districts, the ones that's going to have the real power, right? Because now it goes to the state legislature, right? So now they got the real power.
Well, no, we get one
They're
more.
They're going to say, okay, you know what? We got two maps here, and some of it looks the same. And as I said a minute ago, Bedford Park, well, 30 years ago, 100% of it was the 80th. Today, only 10% is. So if those maps, and both of those maps say, get rid of that 10%, you know what? I'd be the first, if I was on the other side of that coin, I'd be the first one to agree. But you're also going to tell me that you're going to take away 70% of Norwood and give it to Jeffrey?
Well,
I don't believe that.
Anthony.
And even if, I just don't believe that.
Anthony.
So, again, you might see some, small relevancy to these rejected maps, but at the end of the day, some of those deals have already been done. As you and I have discussed off the air, Adriano Espillard is now back in Riverdale, right? He's handing out pens and COVID tests. He's hanging out with Jeffrey Dinowitz. Why is that? He hasn't represented that area in 10 years, right? Why is he there? We know why he's there, because the real maps, the real ones that are being created now, and by the way, they're only being created now. Because I said on this show 6 months ago, okay, they were bought and paid for, right? I said that 6 months ago. So now they're going out, they're finalizing it.
The Independent Redistricting Committee was made up of half Republicans, half Democrats. And if you look at the Bronx lines, they're using highways in some instances, with the exception of Ms. Biaggi's new district, which really has the hanging chads, like you say you had. All right. So,
and that shows you that if they would have did that 30 years ago, I honestly don't think anybody would have disagreed. Mm-hmm. But with all of the damage that has taken place in the last 30 years, I don't think you can reinvent the wheel like that again. I really don't. Again, there are some similarities, in different districts. You do have that little 10% that I'm talking about, like here in Bedford Park, but in all of the Bronx, you have some of those little 10%, situations, and those might change. Well, those might change, and I'll tell you what. Like you put on the air a couple of weeks ago with the difference between the 80th and the 81st in Norwood and Jeffrey and Natalia. You know what? If they clean that up, and that's part of that 10% I'm talking about, you know what? God bless them.
Well, don't forget who covers Norwood in the city council right now. Eric Dinowitz, Jeffrey's son. So it looks like he's trying to mirror his son's district so they can work collaborative.
Collaborative. Collaborative. Robert, I believe you mentioned to me, as well as this audience, on several occasions, that you were at one time a very high valued member of the Ben Franklin Club.
I was
also mentioned, and I know this myself, but of course you've mentioned it as well, that the Ben Franklin Club, and I'll give them a lot of credit, they represent the 81st Assembly District as powerful as they can. They have it in their bylaws, and they'll tell you, you're in the 81st, you're in our club, and we want you to work. Anywhere else, get out. And they represent it well. But you know as well as I do that they don't go past Gun Hill Road.
Well,
you know
Anthony,
that as well as I do. And they'll tell you that, right? So now you're going to make me believe that now that those members are not only going to come to Gun Hill Road, but they're actually going to go down the hill. They're going to go down the hill to the brand new 99-cent bodegas we have. They're going to go down the hill where they can meet a wonderful brand new Muslim community on
Good.
206.
Anthony.
Right there. And you're going to tell me Jeffrey Dinowitz is going to want to do
Anthony, let me agree with you on, yes, I was offered the the corresponding secretary position of the Ben Franklin Club, which I turned down because I was also at the same time the Parents Association president, Middle School 141. And
but my question has nothing to do with your resume.
I understand that, but I didn't want to spread
my question has nothing to do with the thought of your resume. My question has to do with the thought of the club. And again, how do I expect some fat guy that was appointed, right, and obviously got paid, right, one way or the other, right, to draw a map of neighborhoods that he's never seen before?
Anthony,
that's why they were rejected.
There were probably women on this committee too. All right. But again, we know, like you say, that certain elected officials have seniority and they're going to be influential in this map, as Jose Rivera used to say to us on the old redistricting. That's how
there's some influence. Remember what I told you, I think it was 2 months ago, and you can see it in these rejected maps. What did I say 2 months ago about the East Side? I said they're going to follow the line of Richie Torres. That's what I said. And if you look at these rejected maps, that's what you see.
Correct. Okay. I do want to speak a little about the fire on East 188th Street.
Yeah.
Mr. Producer, do we have my photos that I gave you ready? This was a very tragic fire. It was originally reported that 19 people were killed. But it's been revised to 17, as I said at the beginning of the show. I was at the site yesterday. I was at the Islamic Cultural Center, and I donated $1,000 to the Islamic Cultural Center for the burial of these people. The burial is going to happen on Friday. Well, the burial services is going to happen on Friday, and hopefully we can play at the end of the show, Mr. Producer.
I thought it was Sunday, Robert. I don't mean to correct you, but I thought it was Sunday.
It is Sunday. What did I say?
You just said Friday.
Oh, today is Friday. It is Sunday. The prayer service and the Islamic Cultural Service has said that they're hoping that people come because they expect the elected officials to be there. All the elected officials. They expect a lot of media and they expect a lot of people because the Muslim community in the Bronx is growing by leaps and bounds. It is not only just this one building. It's all over there. It's in the Bangladesh community are Muslim in the Parkchester area. The Yemen community are Muslims in the East Bronx. And they're in the North Bronx too, in Norwood. There's a Muslim community. All right. They're all over the Bronx. And these are people who you want really as your neighbors because these are people with morals. And Mr. Producer, can we end the show with the video, by the way? Mr. Producer? I don't know. Would he fall asleep?
He could.
All right. Well, let's continue. Yesterday, Councilman Oswald Felice.
Well, wait a minute. Maybe the producer is busy verifying the check. All right.
Here we go. We know he's up now. Can you put up some of the photos there? Okay, this is the press conference by the mayor, but I sent our producers four photos. Can you put the photo of the building up? What the condition of the building is, rather than Mayor Adams? Mr. Producer? All right. Well, I sent him what the condition of the building is. The building is boarded up right now. There are some windows that are boarded up. People have complained that there's still an odor of smoke in the building, that heat is still inadequate, that there's no hot water, and that the conditions are very bad, and they're being told to move back into the higher floors. It's very bad that they're forcing people to go into a building. They have until and Councilman Felice, Assemblywoman, forgive me, Yudeka Tapia, and Councilwoman Perina Sanchez, whose district has the Monroe College, which is one drop-off point for donations. The second drop-off point is the Islamic Cultural Center at 371 East 166th Street, where this prayer service will be held. But yesterday, Councilman Felice held his press conference with Councilwoman Sanchez and Assemblywoman Tapia. He said that people are in hotels that are displaced. They can stay until January 24th, but he did not say anything afterwards. Now, I asked Councilman Felice that 3 years ago in this same district, Richie Torres, who you can see in the photo with our mayor, said, it was a fire from a stove, and what was happening is the fire doors were left open, and it was supposed to be taken care of at that time 3 years ago after this fire, that all fire doors would be working. Obviously, we see from this fire they weren't. And I asked Councilman Felice what were the inspection of these buildings. Get the inspection reports, see if the inspectors were doing their job. And unfortunately, Assemblywoman Tapia comes in and says we don't have enough inspectors, and that the state is going to mandate that the city hire more inspectors. Now, unfortunately, I didn't say this to her, but I didn't want it, but the state mandates a lot of things to the city, but does not fund them. If you're going to say you have to have more inspectors, you need to fund them and give them money so they can hire these inspectors. But we need to know what the inspection of the buildings were. If there was properly maintained heat, because a lot of tenants said they have space heaters because there wasn't enough heat. Then I asked the councilman to look at that, because it was said that Canberra Properties, which has bought that building a couple of years ago, it was a Mitchell Lama building, and it seems that they seem to be, I'm not going to say, it seems they're allegedly forcing tenants out, all right? Because they've done a lot now. They have over 100 buildings, it's been reported, where they have Section 8, and they did NYCHA buildings with the RAD program, where the tenants have to be Section 8. And that's federal money coming in through the Section 8 program. So the city gets extra money and the developer gets extra money for that program.
Bob, I don't know if you're aware, but, and of course, it's a very tragic situation. There are, many things going on there. But just to talk about what you just talked about a second ago, we have a wonderful, terrible company here in the Bronx called the Pinnacle Group that is, doing exactly what you've been describing for the last 10 years. They're buying, what was once, well-maintained buildings, which, has slowly decrepit, and basically doing the same thing. And some of the tenants are taking, these companies to court, but the practice, I'm talking about the practice, has sadly now been around for about over 10 years.
Correct, Anthony. And with that, too, is the fact that these okay, we have the video, and let's end the program right here and let Sheikh Musa Drummer speak. Okay.
Good morning to my fellow New Yorkers.
Go ahead, Mr. Producer.
And especially my fellow Bronxites. Today is Friday, and I wanted to come here and give an update to the fire tragedy that
just roll the film, please, Mr. Producer. Let Sheikh Musa speak about the preparations. These are photos that I took yesterday. This is what the building looked like. You have a lot of windows and many floors boarded up. This is a memorial to the people that perished in the fire. That is right next to the building. But let's hear from Sheikh Musa, please, Mr. Director. That was my giving the check to the Islamic Cultural Center. Okay, fine.
Sunday.
Thank you.
I want to begin by expressing our profound gratitude to individuals, groups, and government. So far, every single aspect of the tragedy, every single aspect is in place. Obviously, there are three phases to the tragedy. First, there was the need to ascertain the number of deaths, identify them, and notify their family. And that has been done. Every family member have been contacted, and every death have gone through the medical examiner's examination and confirm the death and the identity and the cause of death, every one of them, 17 of them. That's the first phase. The second phase is after the medical examiner's work, then the second phase consists of families taking the bodies of their loved ones to their respective funeral homes for washing, surroundings, and then praying for the bodies. And after that, then the burial services. That's the second phase, which we are in now. All the bodies have been collected by the funeral directors, and they are in the possession and under the control of these funeral directors. All of them actually are Muslims. They know exactly what needs to be done so that the religious aspect of it will not be compromised. And we're grateful for that. The families have, been in touch with these funeral directors, and all the arrangements have been met appropriately. And we are now preparing for the prayer services and then the burial. That is the phase 2 which we are in. This Sunday at 10 o'clock, all the remaining 15 bodies will be transported to the Islamic Cultural Center of the Bronx, and the address is 371 East 166th Street, Bronx, New York, 10456. They will be transported there Sunday, 10 o'clock, for prayer services. Instead of having 15 different prayers, all the 15 bodies will share one prayer, one funeral prayer, because one prayer covers the 15 bodies, which makes things a lot easier and more manageable. So this Sunday at 10 o'clock, the funeral services will be conducted right after the prayer. 11 of these 15 bodies will be buried here, meaning that immediately after the prayer service, they will be transported to their respective destination to cemeteries. And the remaining 4 bodies will be transported back to the funeral home for shipping to Gambia. So 4 out of 15 will be buried in Gambia. Those arrangements also have been made. And the mayor's office have paid for these expenses. Now, Sunday, again, still in phase 2, we expect to have the largest crowd in that area, even larger than 2007, between the public, who are very much affected by this, elected officials who are on the ground from day one, law enforcement, and the media. This Sunday, 10 o'clock, the place is expected to experience a crowd that it has never experienced before. For that reason, the Muslims are known for many things, but one is very prominent, which is discipline. And that is why I am making this. Discipline is a hallmark for Muslims. To receive such a level of crowd requires a tremendous discipline. And on that vein, we expect nothing less than the type of discipline that the world expects of Muslims. When you have such a crowd, obviously some people want to get close, some people want to move about, some people want to do different things. And unfortunately, not everybody is patient or understanding or open-minded. Not everybody understands the requirement of the discipline, which may cause frictions. We do not want individual comfort or individual preference or individual attitude to interfere with honoring the 15 dead bodies there. We beg you to exercise the highest level of discipline. If you get close, fine. If you're far away, fine. If you are discomfort and you want to leave, fine. The only thing that is not fine is to create a chaotic situation where the scene that you create become the spotlight away from the 15 caskets. So I'm begging every single person, man and woman who are coming Sunday, be there on time, be disciplined, be respectful, be open-minded, and know that it's not you or anybody else, it's the 15 bodies that will be brought before us for their final right that we owe it to them. We're not doing them the favor. In Islam, we are obligated to provide the best funeral and burial services to our dead. This is not something that we're doing them a favor. This is our obligation. And if we don't do it, then the crime is committed by us, not them. They have gone, but their bodies still have the same right as where the souls were in those bodies. That is why I am begging every one of you who is coming to join us to the prayer. We greatly appreciate your presence, because the more, the better. However, we want you to take the spotlight from you and keep it where it belongs, to the 15 individuals that left us. I cannot emphasize enough of the discipline that is required. And I expect that we will be very disciplined. This is not the first time, unfortunately, we're doing this, but it is greater this time. The last time it was 10. Now we're talking about 15, 1.5 times. And we also expect the crowd to also be multiplied, even greater than that. So we are grateful that you are coming, but we are more grateful that if you respect the sanctity of that day and the moment and keep whatever personality, attitude, or feeling you have to yourself until we bury our loved ones, because we owe it to them. Do not create scene because of your comfort or your preference. Do not create anything that will detract or distract others. Now, from 10, we budgeting about 2 hours, maybe 10 to 12. Everything should be ready. We will have a lot of elected officials there, a lot of media, a lot of dignitaries. Some of them have already confirmed. This will be very high level funeral because this has not happened in the Bronx for the past 30 years. And everybody want to be part of it so that they will give their maximum respect to the families, and which you will highly appreciate. From Sunday until now, some of the elected officials leave Monroe College around 9, 10 o'clock, including the borough president. They are doing everything possible to making sure that the loved ones and those who are affected get everything that they deserve and entitled. We are extremely grateful for it. The public, we cannot thank the public enough. The level of money raised on behalf of these families, we can never ever thank them enough. And you know, when you look at these fundraising outlets, the overwhelming majority of the donors are anonymous donors. They're doing it for real reason. They're doing it because that's who they are. They're doing it because they want to honor the families affected. They're doing it because they understand the magnitude of the suffering befall on the victims. And again, we can never ever express enough thanks to those who donated money or items, or who just stop by and pray and cry and in solidarity, fellowship. We are grateful. We are very grateful. I've been saying this many times. I said nobody wishes to be in such condition. But if one has to be in such a condition, New York is the best place to be. Why do I say that? Because New York is a place where the infrastructure to facilitating such agony, such calamity, is on top of the line in every level. And we're grateful for it. So that is the phase 2. A prayer and a burial. Now that leads me now to the last phase. Obviously, all of you know that the 17 who have already died, they are among the ones that were critically hurt. That means there's a remaining about 14 people or so whose conditions we don't know. We don't know whether they will make it or not. And if they do make it, under what condition? How much rehabilitation do they need? How long? Some of them may be lifetime if they do make it. And that requires tremendous resources to facilitate. And the pain and the need to take care of them will be long term. Therefore, what is going on now is just temporal, but phase 3 is a long term. And we pray that those who are still in the hospital will pull through. And we also pray that their injuries will not be, disabling injuries. We're praying, but we're also expecting the worst. So we have the phase 1, which was completed, phase 2, which we are in, and phase 3, which is the long term. And so we hope that every phase will be managed accordingly. and we're grateful for this. You see, when you put leaders in difficult situations, they make things happen. When difficult situations happen, make sure you have competent leadership so that they will not be chaos, they will not be incompetency, they will not be mediocrity. And so far, every single aspect of this tragedy is being managed from top to bottom, and we're grateful for it. Now, I'm going to end with this. Every tragedy, especially tragedy this magnitude, there will always be opportunists. There will always be elements of opportunistic, maneuvering, trying to raise funds under false pretense, trying to represent themselves as, the speakers of the affected or the protectors of the affected or their interest or whatever. Or they will advocate on their behalf. They may have all kinds of activities, newsletters sent out, whole press conferences, pretending. And they could be very credible in the way they look and they appear because they are masters. They are professional pretenders. And my brothers and sisters, this tragedy should never ever be a platform for opportunists to take advantage of the blood of our loved ones who died in the most horrendous fire in the last 30 years. If anybody have any contact with anybody else pretending to represent the family, verify it with us. You can contact me. I will make sure that those individuals are legit and their positions are approved. If not, do not give them money, don't associate with them, don't empower them, don't give them any cover. Some people are not good and they will take advantage even in the death of children. To them, they don't care. To them, this is a season where they do what they always want to do, which is to do bad things for other people for selfish reasons. Please, on behalf of the family, on behalf of the African community, on behalf of the Muslim community, on behalf of the Bronxites, and on behalf of all the elected officials concerned, do not allow these elements of evil mischievous to deceive you. The tragedy has coordinators. The tragedy has a platform. The tragedy has an entity, Islamic Cultural Center, that manages every single thing now and in the long term. No other entity except the Islamic Cultural Center of the Bronx is officially approved to manage short-term and long-term affairs of these victims. Now, when I say the victims, I mean the African victims. Obviously, the building has multitude of other tenants. Their affairs are their affairs. But concerning the African victims, Islamic Cultural Center will manage it. If somebody is not representing Islamic Cultural Center, they're not representing the tragedy victims of African descent. This has been a heartwarming experience. As painful as it is, New Yorkers came. They came through. They donated, they volunteered, they give everything. They pray because New York is where this thing can be mitigated, because New Yorkers are nothing but people who are there to express solidarity with their fellow New Yorkers. We're extremely grateful. And if anyone wants further information or clarification or verification or where the funds are going, who's getting the funds, who's raising funds, which one is legit, who's entitled to whatever, call me, contact me. My job here is to making sure that the last penny from every fundraising platform is given to those that the public give money on behalf of. Not a single penny will go to any organization's operational expenses or any organization's wish list. The last penny of every single dollar raised that we know of will go to the victims and victims alone. Nothing will be taken for operational causes. These funds are given to the victims and the victims will have them. We have already designated the Bronx Borough President's Office to making sure that every penny is counted and every penny given is known by the Borough President's Office. And every penny will be accountable. We owe it to the public. We owe it to the victims. But most importantly, we owe it to our value and dignity and who we are. The people donated anonymously because they trust that their donation will make an impact. And their donation will make an impact. It will not be misused. That will be the greatest betrayal, and we will not allow it. We will share with the public when everything is said and done, and the distribution concluded, and the Borough President's Office certify the completion of everything. We will share it to the public where everything went, so that the public will continue to have trust for their fellow human beings, for their fellow New Yorkers, for their neighbors. If we fail New Yorkers. We fail the families, we fail ourselves, and we can't afford it. Please hold me accountable for what I'm promising. Our job here to making sure that every single penny, every pair of shoes, every donated item on behalf of the family is accounted and accountable. And we will hold responsible for those waging fundraising campaign. Because this is why people donate. And this is why people will continue to donate to other causes, because they know that their donations, where their donations should go. We will do it. This is the trust that God put on us, and we will never betray this trust. Because I'm talking to you now, I don't know if I'm going to be buried with these people before Sunday. I don't know. There may be a chance I may be dead before Sunday. Maybe a chance I may leave. But nonetheless, the trust that put on us, we will never ever fail on it. We will not fail for the public trust. We will protect it, we will honor it. And for that, we're deeply grateful to all of you, all New Yorkers. And we invite you Sunday, just come. Come fellowship, come make your last prayer for these victims. Come, and you will be satisfied. We are competent in
Keep watching. The Politics.